Everyone, and today we are going to be making a game of blackjack, okay? And how we're going to do this project is I'll first tell you what you need to include in your game, so like what it is and what you need to include, because some people don't know what blackjack is. And next I'm going to show you a preview of the ending result of the game once you have built it, and you can then try it yourself, okay? So this is optional because some people are unsure and some people are very confident, okay? But I would be really impressed if you did it all yourself. But don't think this is compulsory. You can just look at the solution and code along with me, okay? So here's the brief overview of the game. So for this version of the game, we're only having a computer dealer and a human player, okay? So it's not like real casino blackjack. So we will start with a normal deck of cards, and you're going to create a representation of this deck with Python, okay? So no graphics, it's just a text-based game, okay? So the aim of the game is to get closer to the value of 21 than the dealer does, okay? And you'll see what I mean in a minute. So here is our computer dealer, and here's our human player, and we've got our nice deck over here. So first, the player places a bet, and they will place a bet of chips. And here are my chips. So this is the amount my player bet right now. So after the player places a bet, the dealer starts with one card face up. So here's my face up card, and one card face down. And the player starts with two cards face up. Okay, so two face up cards. And the player goes first in the gameplay. Okay. Now, as I told you before, the player goal is to get closer to a value of 21 than the dealer does, okay? And possible actions you could do to do this is to hit, so to receive another card, stay or stand to stop receiving cards, okay? So not use moves like insurance, split, or double down because as I told you before, it's not a real casino blackjack, okay? So here, what I mean by getting closer to a value of 21 than the dealer does is the sum of the values of your cards. So let's say we've got 3 of hearts and 4 of clubs. So obviously the total sum would be 7, okay? So that is what I mean here. So if you here I want to hit for more cards from deck, and for example, our player just got another card, okay? So before they had 2, and then they got 1 more, okay? Now let's look at different game endings, okay? Because these are crucial in your game, okay? So the first game ending is when the player busts. So what bust means is when the value, so the sum of all the values of their cards goes over 21. So if the player keeps on hitting and the value goes over 21, they lose and they don't get their bet, and the dealer will collect their bet, okay? So they'll collect the player's bet, sadly. And so they'll collect all the chips, okay? And another one is when the dealer beats the player, okay? So not the player busting, when the dealer beats the player. So this is what I mean. So the way the dealer wins is, so the dealer's sum is larger than the player's sum, but still under or exactly 21. So some of you may say, why can't we just go higher than the dealer? Why did the game stop just because the dealer was higher? Well, so once the player has had their turn, the dealer needs to keep on hitting until their value goes over the player, which means they win, or if they bust, okay? So again, the dealer collects the chips over here. Now this game ending is when the dealer busts. So after the player's turn, if the dealer keeps on hitting, they will eventually bust, and the player gets to collect double the amount of their bet, okay? Okay? But we may be doing it differently in the project, so please don't get confused. If you want to do it like that, you can do it, okay? And obviously, once our players collected double, we'll have a happy one, a happy human player over here. Now here you need to look at some special rules, okay? Because you'll need to include them in your game. So face cards, so such as Jack, Queen, and King, they count as a value of 10, and aces can count as 1 or 11. So whichever value is preferable to the player, okay? Because sometimes players may want to count a ace as a 1 or 11, okay? So now let's take a look at the preview of the game. See you at my PyCharm project. Okay, so here I am at my Python project, and as I told you in some previous projects, I'll be doing all my projects in Python. So here is what it will say when I run it. So it says, "Welcome to Blackjack. How many chips would you like to bet?" So I am going to bet 60. And here, dealer's hand, or you can say dealer's cards. And here's my hidden cards, and here is my face-up card. And I've got my two face-up cards here. So 8 plus 3 is 11. Okay, so would you like to hit or stand? I'm just going to hit. Okay, so I am just going to stand. And it says the dealer wins because they reached exactly 21. And notice that all of my dealer's cards have come now because this was a hidden card. And now that all of the dealer's cards are there. So that is what I am going to do. So if when the game ends, I'm going to show everyone's cards, even the face down ones. And here you can see players winning stand at 40. Now, as I told you before, I might be doing the chips differently. So in this project, I said that if the dealer wins or the player busts, they need to subtract the amount of chips they bet from a certain total. Okay, so it says, sorry about that spelling error. Would you like to play another game? Enter Y or N. So if I press N, it'll say thanks for playing, and it will just exit. Okay, and if I said yes, it will just run the whole loop again. So let's actually go on to building our game. But before we do that, have a go at this game. You don't have to, but please have a go. Try do some of the easy bits, okay? See you when you've finished your game. Okay, so welcome back everyone. So now what we're going to do is we are going to start building our game. So here we need to import one module. So I'm going to be using quite a few comments over here because so it's a bit more clear and organized. Okay, so here we want to import modules and define variables. Okay, so we'll need to define a few variables here. But first I want to import some modules. So I'm going to import the random module. Now the reason I'm doing this is because we'll be using it to pick out random cards from a deck that we will create. Okay, so now we are going to create all the suits, ranks, and values in our cards. Okay, so let me just fast forward and I'll see you when I have recorded all of them. Okay, so here I am, and I've got my suits, which are obviously hearts, diamonds, spades, and clubs, and I put them in a tuple so we don't accidentally change them. And for our ranks, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then Jack, Queen, King, and Ace, okay? And after that, we've got values, and I put these in a dictionary so we can map to them when we are creating our deck of cards and picking them out and hitting and standing, okay? So let me just make sure these lines go away. So as you can see, our values, we have got 2, we've got 2 is equal to 2, 3 is equal to 3, 4 is equal to 4, 5 is equal to 5, 6 is equal to 6, 7 is equal to 7, and then you can see that 8 is equal to 8, all the way up to 10, and then it says Jack is equal to 10, and all of that. Okay, so let me just see what these errors are. So what I'm going to do here is there we go. So here we've got all our ranks. So I've finished organizing all of this, and now we are going to define another variable, and this is going to be called playing. So this is when the game is actually playing properly. So not the whole loop that makes the whole game and says welcome to Blackjack and all that. It's only when the player is actually doing stuff, okay? So here we set playing to true. And now, since we have done this, we are going to define some classes. So let me just write down class classes. So here I am going to define my classes. Okay, so the first class I want to create is called card. So class, card. Okay, so what this class does is creates all the cards. Okay, so it doesn't create the deck, it only creates all the cards. Okay, so what are we going to add in this class? So obviously we want to add a few attributes, so obviously we're going to use the init method. So def init, so you can just press tab to select the one you want, and then I in not only self, so I'm going to put in self and then suit, and I'm also going to put in rank. Okay, so these two variables are the ones I'm going to create my card names out of. Okay, so I want to obviously set these attributes to a certain name that we can refer them to. So self dot suit. So this is optional. You can always just say self.suit, but I prefer doing this. Self.suit is equal to suit, and then self.rank is equal to rank. There we go, so rank. So let me just make sure Pep8 is happy. So Pep8 is the one that reviews our code. And now you might not be familiar with this method. Whoops, let me just. You may not be familiar with this method, but it's called this. So methods with these two underscores are called magic methods, and here I'm using the string magic method. And what this method does, it just basically converts into a string, but it is only used in classes. Okay, so here I'm going to say to return self.rank plus, so I'm going to concatenate that with of and then I'm going to concatenate of with self.suit. Okay, so the result this is basically going to give is it's going to return something like king of clubs, because rank is like 2. So let's say king, and then it puts in of, and then it says which suit it is. Okay, so it'll just do it in order for us. Okay, so once we have done that, we now need to create a class, and it's called deck. Okay, so what this class does, it creates a deck of cards for us. Okay, so we don't need to manually do it and keep on shuffling it and all of that. Okay, so if we'll create a deck quite quickly over here. So obviously we want to define some attributes, and this time I'm not going to do it like this. I'm going to define them directly under our init method. So obviously I want to say def init, and then I'm going to write in self.deck is equal to, and then an empty list. So it will be much more easy to start with an empty list because we haven't created a deck yet. So haven't, excuse the spelling, created a deck yet. Okay, so we haven't created a deck yet, obviously, so we need to set it to an empty list. So now we're going to add in a for loop. So for every suit in suits, and I'm going to put in another for loop inside of this for loop. Now this is called a nested loop. So for every suit in suits, and for every rank in ranks, so our lists and tuples up here, what I want to do, so for each one, So for every rank and suit in our variables that we defined at the top, we want to append. So we want to append to self.deck. So I'm going to say self.deck.append. So please don't be confused if you see two dots. It's absolutely normal sometimes, especially in classes. So what I want to append to here is I want to call the card class, and I want to append my suits, and I want to append my suit and rank together. Okay, so that will obviously create a nice deck. So obviously now I want to make this deck into a whole deck. And all the cards are going to be strings in here as well. So our whole deck is going to be like a whole string. So obviously I want to define the string magic method. So string, and then I'm going to define a new variable called deck comp. So deck combination is equal to, and then I'm going to set this to an empty string because we haven't created our combination of cards. Okay, so now I'm going to say for every card in self.deck, so for every card in this empty list over here, well, it won't be empty now. What I want to do is I want to say my deck comp plus equal to, and then I'm going to put in a new line first, and then I'm going to concatenate that with deck comp. Okay, so please, this is very normal. Okay, so whoops, what did I write here? Sorry, just got a bit confused there. So my deck comp is equal to, and then I want to put a new line, and I want to concatenate that with my card dot, and then use the magic method here. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is basically my deck comp is equal to so my deck comp plus a card, so a new line and a card, is then equal to deck comp. So I'm just setting the value again, so I'm reassigning it every time I create a card. And after that, I'm going to I want to return the deck. So return the deck has, and then I'm going to concatenate that with deck comp, okay, because I want to say the deck has, and my deck comp is basically the combination of cards in my deck. Okay, so now I want to make another method, and I'm going to call this method shuffle. So def shuffle. Okay, so you could have guessed what it means. So what my method is going to do here is shuffle all the cards. Okay, so it's going to shuffle all the cards in the deck. Okay, so this one is going to be very simple. We're just going to use a method from the random module. So random.shuffle. Okay, so I'm going to use the shuffle method in random. So random.shuffle, and here I want to shuffle my deck. Okay, so self.deck. And that is our shuffle method. And now we are going to make a deal method. So def deal. So this one may be quite confusing, but all we're going to do is pick out a card from the deck. Okay, so all we're going to do is pick out a card from the deck. So I'm going to create another variable so we can store that card. So I'm going to say single card is equal to self.deck.pop. So what I want to do here, so I'm just going to what I am trying to say here is my single card, so the card that I want to pick out is going to be the card that is popped off from the end of my deck. So if you don't remember, pop means just take off the last value from a list or a string. Okay, so And after we do that, we want to return our single card, okay? So here is so right here, we just created our deck method. So you created two classes, we need to do another one, okay? Because this game will have quite a lot of classes in it. So our next class is called hand. So this one, as you saw in the preview, it said dealer's hand and player's hand and all of that. Okay, so oh whoops, not hand. Sorry, class. There we go. So what this one is going to do, it is going to show all the cards that the dealer and player have. Okay, so this might be a bit confusing. So all I'm trying to do here is just to show how many cards each person has. So the number of cards the dealer has and the number of cards the player has. Okay, so first, obviously we need to create some attributes. So def init and I'm just going to create some attributes directly again. So self.cards is equal to and then an empty list, okay? Because we haven't put in anything yet. And self.value, so the total sum of the values is equal to 0. And self.aces is equal to 0. So we're using this to keep track of the aces. So this aces one will keep track of aces for us, okay? Because we want to we need our aces to be in our game as well. So first we are going to define a method called add card. So def add card, okay? And what this method does is it is going to add a card to the player's or dealer's hand, okay? So that's why you put it in our hand class. Let's just see what this error is over here. Whoops. Okay, there we go. It's going to go away soon. So add cards. What we want to do here is we want to add our cards to our empty list. So we want to add it to our self.cards here. So our self.cards represent all the cards in the player's or dealer's hand. Okay. So I'm going to say self.cards.append. So I want to append to my list, and I want to append a card. Okay, now we already, so like here is our card. So we created our card over here. Okay, so I want to append a card. Okay, so I'm going to, let's just see what this error is over here. Okay, so unresolved reference. Oops. Okay, so obviously it says unresolved reference, so I need to put in my card over here. Okay, so now the red line has gone. And after I've written self.card, so after I appended, I want to write self.values, self.value is plus equal to values of the card.rank. Okay, so card.rank. So basically all we're doing here is calculating the total sum of the values of the cards. Okay, now obviously we need to create so here I'm going to put in an if statement. So if the card dot rank, so like the value is equal to ace, so if it's equal to ace, so over here we've got our ace over here. So if it's equal to ace, what I want to do here is I want to say self.aces plus equals 1. So I'm just going to add 1 every time I'm just going to add 1 to self.aces every time the card picked out is an ace. Okay, so now after we have done that, we need to find another method, and I'm going to call this method adjust for ace. Okay, so what this one does is um we're going to adjust our ace depending on the player's total sum. Okay, so let's say if the sum is really close to 21, we'll make the ace be we're going to make the ace turn into 1. Okay, so if it's 11, we're going to make it turn into 1. So def adjust for ace. So I'm going to put in a while loop. So while the self dot value, so while the value of our player's hand is smaller than 21 and it is also smaller than self dot aces. Whoops, there we go. Then what I want to do is I want to say self dot value, not values, minus equal 10. Okay, so we're going to minus 10 from our total value if it is bigger than 21 and we have got an ace. Okay, so sorry, not smaller than, it's bigger than over here. Sorry about that confusion. So after that, we want to say self dot aces minus equals 1. So we can just adjust that ace if the user is in a hard time. Okay, so after we have done that, we need to create another class. So this class is called chips. Okay, and this class is going to keep track of chips. Okay, so it's not going to ask for them, it's going to keep track of them. Okay, so obviously I want to create a few attributes. So def init, and I'm going to say self dot total. So this is where what I was talking about earlier in the preview, where we when the user lost, the amount of chips they bet was taken away from the self.total, so in this case 100, and the chips that the player received was 100 minus the amount of chips they bet. Okay, so now you probably have got quite an understanding of that now, and here we're going to define something called self.bet. Okay, so obviously I'm going to set this to 0 because the player hasn't bet anything yet. Okay, so here I'm going to define a method called winBet. So if the player or the dealer wins, we'll just make them collect their bet. Okay, so what I'm going to say here is self dot total is plus equal to self dot bet. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is the total plus the self.bet is then equal to total. So again, we're reassigning our total, but then when we reassign it, we're going to add self.bet to it. So that will be the players or the dealers winning. So now I'm going to define a lose bet one. So this one is going to take away the amount of chips from 100 and return it to you. Okay, so I'm going to say self dot total minus equals self dot bet. Okay, so this time what it's going to do is it is going to say, what I'm trying to say here is self dot total minus self dot bet is then equal to self dot total. So same as before, we are reassigning it, but this time we're taking away our self dot bet. So these are all the classes we need to define, but we haven't finished yet. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to define our functions, okay? So it's not only classes that we're going to use, we're going to do functions as well. So the first one we are going to do is called take bet. So def take bet, and you might have guessed what it's going to do already. So what it's going to do is what it's going to do. So let me just pass in this parameter here. So we need to put in our chips parameter so we know how many chips the user has. So what this one is going to do, it is going to ask for users bet. Okay, so I just called it take bet instead. So here I'm going to use try, except, and else, and a while loop. Okay, so I'm going to say while true, just to make it a bit shorter. So while true, I want to try this. So I want to try chips dot bet is equal to the integer of the input how many chips would you like to bet? Okay, so how many chips would you like to bet? Now here, the reason I put int here is because I'm using a try and except here is because if the user types in words, we are going to say, sorry, you can't type in words, you need to type in an integer. Okay, so that's why I put int here. So if this causes an error, that obviously means the user has typed in some text and and they haven't typed in a number. So for our except, so except, so what is going to happen here, so the error that is going to occur here is going to be a value error. So value error, so if there is a value error, which is in this case going to occur if the user types in some text, I want to print out sorry, please can you type in a number? Okay, so sorry, please can you type in a number? And if there are no errors, so else, so if there's no errors, or I want to run this if statement. So if the chips dot bet is bigger than the chips dot total, all I want to do here is if the amount of chips I bet is bigger than the chips dot total, because we are not going to let the user type in like 150 or something. So if that is bigger, what we want to do is print your bet can't exceed 100. Okay, so not 1000, sorry, 100. There you go. And if the user types in anything that's perfect for us right now, all we want to do is just break this loop. Okay, so it won't keep on asking anymore. So we've done our take bet. Now we want to make a function called hit. So if the player or dealer hits, then they will get another card. So def hit, and here we want to put in two parameters, deck and hand, okay, because we want to add to our hand and take some cards from the deck. So I'm going to say hand dot add card, so I'm calling the add card method on here, and so we want to add a card from the deck and use the deal function over here. So if we enter that, so let me just put in this another line over here. There we go. And I'm going to also call the adjust for ace method in case the card is an ace. Okay, so here is our hit. So it was pretty small, and now we're going to define a method called hit or stand. So hit or stand. Okay, so we need to put in deck and hand in here again. So deck, hand. So whoops, I just need to put in a comma. Deck and hand. And what this function is going to do is it's going to ask if we want to hit or stand. So it's going to ask the player. Now here I'm going to define a keyword called global. Okay, so global playing. So what I mean here is you probably haven't encountered this before. So global playing means so we're just making this available in this function. So this one will be looked at first. Okay, so global playing. So don't worry about that too much. Just follow along with me right now. So what I'm gonna say is while true, I want to say x. Actually, let's call that ask. So ask is equal to the input. Would you like to hit or stand? Okay. And once I ask that, I want to say, please. Please enter H or S. Okay, so H or S standing for hit or stand. And now I'm going to put in my if statement depending on what they type in. So if ask, and then so the first letter of ask, so obviously that's index 0, and the reason I'm putting in index 0 is because in case they accidentally type in something like hat instead of hit, we'll still count it as hit because the first letter is equal to H. So I'm converting this to lowercase in case they type in uppercase, so we'll just convert it into lowercase automatically. So I'm going to say if the first letter of ask, so the answer for ask, is equal to H, then I want to call the hit function. So hit, and then put in my two parameters, deck and hand. And there we go. That's our first condition. And after that, I want to say elif. So else if the first letter, so the first letter converted to lowercase is not X, sorry, it's ask. So in case the first letter converted to lowercase is now, if it's equal to S, then what we want to do here is print player stands. Player stands. Dealer is playing. And now what we are going to do here is we are going to set playing to false. Okay, so what this is going to do right now is it won't stop the whole loop of our game. All it will just stop our player from doing anything else while the dealer is playing. Okay, so now we're going to say else, so in case they type in something else. So if they do that, I want to print sorry, I did not understand that. Okay, and then please try again. Okay, so after we have written that, what we want to do is we want to continue. Okay, so we want to continue this loop over here, so keep on asking them. Now I'm going to write in break, so it won't it won't break this. It will break these two if the answer is correct, is what we wanted. Okay, so now we have defined that function. I want to define another one, and this is going to be called show sum. Okay, so def show sum. Okay, so we've got that, and we are going to put in player. So two parameters are going to be called player and dealer. Now the reason I am doing this is because we want to show the players and dealers hands. So I'm going to say print. I'm going to put a new line, so \n, and I want to put in, whoops, let's just put this in quotations. So new line, dealer's hand. So it's going to, what we're going to do here. So sorry about all those errors. So obviously we need to put in double quotation marks instead. So dealer's hand, and I'm going to put in a colon over here. There we go. And I'm going to put in the arg symbol. So you can define the arg symbol here if you want. So I'm going to put in dealer dot cards. So it'll show all the dealer's cards. And then I'm going to concatenate that with a special parameter. So we didn't define it here, but it's still here. So this one will separate our cards together. We'll separate our cards apart. So we want to separate it with a new line over here. So this method is pretty helpful. Okay. So here I'll just copy and paste this line. And I'm going to just tweak it a bit. So copy and paste and put in my P over here. So print, there we go, that's fine. And I'm going to take away this new line. So I'm going to write, so instead of, I'm going to take all of this away. And all I want to put here, I want to print out, whoops, let's just take this away. Sorry, I'm getting a bit confused now. So dealer's hand, we only need to write that. And after that, we want to make sure our player knows that that the dealer has a hidden card. So we're going to say card hidden. There we go. And after that, what we're going to do here is I am going to print I'm going to print an empty string, so an empty string over there, and I'm going to concatenate that with dealer dot cards, and I want to put in the dealer's second card, so that's obviously index 1. So the reason we put an empty string here is so we get a space, so and it's completely in line with card hidden. Okay. Now, after we do that, obviously, we want to print out our players' cards as well. So, I'm going to print... Whoops. I want to print out... So, obviously, I want to put in a new line. I'm going to say players... hand... colon... And this is quite fine, so I'm just going to concatenate it on one line, and I'm just going to put in player dot cards, and obviously we want to put in our magic parameter, sorry. So this magic parameter will always be outlined in orange, so I'm going to separate this with a \n, okay, and then a space as well. So here is our show sum method. Now we're going to put in another method. Okay, so whoops, sorry about that. So I want to copy and paste that. So there we go. So copy and paste. And instead of putting show sum, I am going to put in show all. Okay, so we still want to put in player and dealer. And here we're going to type in this, so we're still going to type in this, but this method will only be called when the game ends. Okay, so here we want to put in all the dealer's cards. So dealer dot cards, and we want to separate them. So separate them with a \n. Okay, so here and over here we are going to take this away and say dealer's hand again, and we are going to show the sum of the values of their cards. So there we go. So dealer's hand, and I'm going to concatenate that with dealer dot value. And after you've written that, we are going to show the player's hand. So what we're going to do here is put in our quotations, \n player's hand. Okay, there we go. Whoops, not hand. There we go. And after we have done that, we are going to concatenate that with all of the players' cards. So player.cards. And we are going to separate that. So we're going to separate that with a once again \n and a space. And here we are going to say here. So we're going to calculate and return the value of the sum of their cards. So player's hand, and then I'm going to put in equals, and all I want to do here is put in my player value. So player dot value. Okay, so here is our show all methods. And now after we have done this, we want to put in all our game endings. So we want to make sure our Python interpreter looks at all our game endings. So here, these methods are going to be pretty short. So I'm going to say here is, the first one is when the player busts. So I'm going to say def player busts. Okay, so def player busts. And the parameters we want to pass in here is player, dealer, and chips. Okay, so this is because if the player busts, obviously we want to put in our player so we know that the amount of chips, and we want our dealer to collect the chips, and we want to show the players chips that they have earned. Okay, so here I'm going to if the player busts, I want to print player busts in all caps, because we need to. I just wanted to do that. And here we're going to put in chips dot lose bet, because they will lose their bet. Okay, now again we are going to define another method called player wins. So let me just copy and paste this again. So Control C, and then Control V. There we go. So instead of player busts, we are going to put in player wins. Okay, so instead of putting player busts, we are going to put in player wins instead. And instead of lose bet, we are going to put in win bet. Okay, there we go. So let me just take this away. And after we have done that, we want to do dealer busts and dealer wins. Okay, so I'm going to paste what I copied before again. So instead of player busts, you want to put in dealer busts. So dealer busts. And instead of player bust, we are going to put in dealer. Dealer, there we go. And we want to put in chips.winbet, because if we put in chips.winbet, obviously our player will win the bet. And now we are going to put in player wins. So I'm going to copy this out and paste that. So there we go. And instead of player wins, it's dealer wins. So let me just change that. Dealer. Dealer. There we go. And instead of putting player wins, you want to put in dealer wins. And we want to put in chips.losebet, because if dealer wins, then the player obviously loses. So now we want to define another method, and this is going to be called push. So push is when the player and dealer tie. So all we want to do here is put in player, whoops, not equal, sorry. We want to put in the two parameters, player and dealer. Okay, now this is because no one will get any chips if we tie. So if they actually do push, all I'm going to say is it's a push player and dealer tie. Okay, so that's what I'm going to type in here. So let me just correct that. And these are all the methods and classes we need for now. And what we're going to do is we are going to actually build the game. So our classes and functions over here, they were just our building blocks. We actually need to build our structure out of them first. So obviously I want to put my whole game in a while loop so we can run the whole game again when we ask the user if they want to play again. So I'm going to say, so in my game flow I'm going to say while true. There you go. I want to print welcome. I'm just going to print welcome to blackjack. Okay, so there we go. We've got our welcome to blackjack. And now what we want to do here is create and shuffle the deck, but we don't want to display it. So let me just write down create and shuffle deck. And because if we display the deck, it will be quite awkward and it will take up quite a lot of space. So I'm going to say deck is equal to my deck class. So deck, there we go. And I'm going to say deck.shuffle because we want to call our shuffle method. And after that, I want to create the players and dealers hand. So I'm going to say player hand is equal to hand, so the hand class, and then player hand dot add card, and I'm just gonna copy and paste that line. So there we go. So because we want to add the card twice, and after that I'm going to say dealer hand is equal to the hand class. So let me just see what this is over here. So sorry, we need to fill in these parameters over here. So almost forgot that. So what we want to do, so when we add our card, we want to put in deck.deal so we can take out a card. So let's put in deck.deal. There we go. And so we'll just resume what we're doing right now. Okay, there we go. So dealer hand is equal to the class hand again, and I'm going to say dealer hand dot add card, and I'm going to deal it from the deck. So deck dot deal. There we go. So what I'm going to do is copy and paste. Say Control C, then Control V. There we go. And now what we want to do is we want to set up the players chips, okay, because we want to keep track of them and everything. Okay, so I'm going to say now player chips so is equal to the class chips, and once I have set that up, I would just want to ask the player for the bet. Okay, so ask player for bet, and obviously all we want to do here is define the take bet function and put in our player chips here. There we go. So we ask the player, and after that what we want to do is we want to show the cards once we have taken the bet. So I'm just going to write down show cards. There we go. And here I'm just going to use the show sum function. So show sum, and I want to put in player hand and dealer hands because we want to show both their hand. So player hand and dealer hand, there we go. We have put in our parameters, and after we have done that, we need to set up playing. So remember, as I told you before, playing is when they are actually hitting and standing and everything. Okay, so while playing, we want to ask the player to hit or stand. So ask player to hit or stand. There we go. So how we are going to do this? Whoops, why is... Okay, sorry. Let me just... there we go. So don't worry about that now. Let's just take away this comment so we don't get that error again. So there we go. So while we're playing, we want to call the hit or stand method. So we are going to ask the player to hit or stand. So I'm going to say deck, because if they say hit, we obviously need to use the hit function. So, and we want to put in player hand as well. So we add to the player hand when we hit. Okay, and after that, I want to show the cards after they have hit or stood. So hit or stand after hit or stand, because otherwise they won't be able to take the decision. So in show sum, we obviously want to put player hand and dealer hand. There we go. And after we have done that, we are going to put in if they have won or not. Okay, so I'm going to say if player hand dot value is larger than 21, so obviously that means they have lost. What we are going to say is player busts, and we are going to put in player hand. Whoops. Player hand. We are going to put in player hand, dealer hand, and player chips. Okay. And if they have lost, we are going to break the playing loop, because they won't be playing anymore if they have lost. But we won't break this loop over here. So that's our main loop. And now we want to put a condition if the player hasn't busted. So we need to put that in line with while. So if the player hasn't busted, obviously we want our dealer to play. So if player hand dot value is smaller than or equal to 21. So let me just put a space here. So if it's smaller or equal to 21, we want to put in our while loop. So while dealer hand dot value is smaller than 17, so they can only hit until they get to 17. Okay, we want our dealer to hit, and then obviously we want to put in our parameters deck and dealer hand, so we add to the dealer's hand and take the cards from the deck. Okay, so after we have done that, we want to show all the cards depending on if the player has lost or not. So I'm going to call ShowAll. So ShowAll, I want to put in player hand and dealer hand. Okay. Now after we have done that, we want to test all the different winning scenarios. So our computer knows if the player has won or not, or the dealer has won or not. So I'm going to say if dealer hand dot value is larger than 21, obviously the dealer busts. So dealer busts, and we want to put in player hand, dealer hand, and player chips. Okay, and after we have done that, let's just copy and paste this so we can just tweak it a bit. So copy and paste. Okay, so instead of if, you want to put in elif. So if the dealer hand dot value is greater than the player hand dot value, so player hand dot value, so if it's greater and still less than 21, so our computer will automatically complete that for us, then obviously our dealer wins. Okay, so we just need to change busts to wins. Okay, there we go. So we have done that. Now I am going to copy and paste this again and put this here. So if the dealer hand value is not greater but smaller than the player hand value, obviously the player wins. So not the dealer wins, the player wins. Let me just put this in over here. And I'm going to copy and paste this top code over here because now we need to see if the player has busted or not. So Control V, if the dealer hand value, so not dealer hand value, we want our player hand dot value. So player hand dot value. So if it's greater than 21, obviously it's not dealer busts, it's player busts. Okay. So now once we have determined whether the player has won or not, what we want to do here is we want to show them their chips total. Okay, so I'm gonna print so \n because I want to put a new line. Players winnings stand at, and then I want to concatenate that with player chips dot total. There we go. And then our final step is to ask the player to play again. So we are going to make a new variable called new game, and I'm going to put this as an input. So I'm going to use the input function for this, and it's going to say, would you like to play again? Enter yes or no. Okay, so Y or N. And after we have done that, we want to determine if they have said Y or N, or yes or no or not. So if new game, so the first letter, so obviously that's index 0, dot lower, so we want to convert that to lower, is equal to the letter Y, then what we want to do here is we are going to set playing to true so they can play again. So I'm going to say playing is equal to true. There we go. And we want to continue our loop. Now we need to put in our else statement. And if they say no, we want to print thanks for playing. And after that, we are going to break the whole loop. Okay, so not only playing, we're going to break the whole loop. Okay, so this is a whole game and it looks pretty long. So let's actually test it out before we get so confident about it. So let me just go to here and run. I want to run blackjack. There we go. So how many chips? Welcome to blackjack. How many chips would you like to bet? Let me say, let's try 101 first. Okay, your bet can't exceed 100. There we go. That's working. So 98. Okay, so dealer's hand is, so here's our dealer's hidden card, and it says 4 of clubs, and it says player's hand 8 of diamonds and ace of clubs. So before we actually start playing, what I'm going to do here is as you saw before, it said would you like to hit or stand, but it came straight after. So what we're going to do here is scroll up to hit or stand. So where is it? So hit or stand. Instead, I'm going to put in a new line. There we go. So it's a bit clear. And then I'm going to get this up again. So if we run this again, So like stop and rerun. There you go. So how many chips would you like to bet? Like we just put 32. Would you like to hit or stand? Please enter H or S. Okay, so this time it came. There's a nice blank line over here. So I want to stand. Okay, so it says the dealer bust and it gives me the values and all the dealer's cards. So players winning stand at 132. Would you like to play again? Enter yes or no. So if I press yes, it says welcome to blackjack and it starts all over again. And if I press no, it wouldn't have. Okay, so again, I just want to tweak a bit so it's a bit nice and tidy. So I want to put in a few new lines. So new lines are quite important if you want to make your work nice and tidy. So let's just run this again. So here on run, how many chips would you like to bet? So we can test it again. Would you like to hit or stand? Please. I'm just gonna hit. Okay, so would you like to hit or stand? I want to stand. Okay, so it says the dealer busts and it says players winning stand at 169. There we go. It is much more clearer now. Okay. So that is our whole game and great job everyone. And I guess that's the end of this video. But before we end this video, please subscribe and tell me how your project went in the comments below. Bye!